listening to Q&A on the Talk of the Quad Cities KQ&A. Once again, here's your host, DJ Phone.
We are back live at 219. And, you know, a lot of people talk about the Prescott area as everybody's hometown, Arizona's Christmas city, great things like that. Well, there's another way to spread the word about Prescott. It's a brand new board game. And I open up my paper, Julie and Brad. We have Julie Trainer and Brad Courtney here. I opened up my copy of the Prescott Daily Courier last week, and guess who I saw on the front page? You! What is going on? How did you guys come up with this incredible board game? First of all, what's the name of the board game?
The board game is called Whiskey Row.
Mm-hmm. And Brad, did you have any role in designing this? Because you're a Whiskey Row historian.
No, she actually, Julie contacted me wanting to know if she got the history straight about Whiskey Row, and then I got to play the game, and I was afraid I was going to see a cardboard with some drawings on it, and it says Whiskey Row and some sorry pieces on there, but it turned out just unbelievable, the quality of it.
I'm looking at it right now. I have the game splayed out in front of me here. This is really a very, very cool design you have for this. Take me back, Julie. First of all, how long have you been thinking about doing something like this, creating a board game?
Creating a board game went way back to my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So she was just starting to get old enough to play Candyland, 5
I remember that.
4. And we played it over and over.
Sure.
And over and over. And finally one day she said she was bored with it. And the next day she said, I'm going to teach you how to play my way. And she gave me the directions, which were really good and really strategic, and then it became kind of a thing with her and my family that we would take games and sort of just redo them. So that's how it all started. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah. And you've got 4 different quadrants on the board here. You've got one section called the law, one the citizens, one the merchants, and one the outlaws. What was the genesis of that idea?
Well, they're all posses, renegade posses. Mm-hmm. So the story is it's 1879, and Whiskey Row has come about, and the drinking, the gambling, everyone in the town is now fugitive for reckless and criminal behavior, and they are on the run from the law.
Now, tell me about the rules of the game.
The rules of the game, it's strategic. It's nothing like Monopoly. I get asked that question a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The rules of the game are that you roll the dice or play a card, and that's all the chance there is. The rest is all strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So you are trying to waylay your opponents in an effort to get free from capture.
Mm-hmm. And you've got cards. There's a deck of cards and chips that come with the game. Tell us about the cards and the chips.
The chips are the players. So each player actually has a posse, and the posse consists of 4 characters, and each one is a custom weighted poker chip. So they're real poker chips, which are kind of Wild West and, you know, kind of fun. And the cards are wanted dead or alive cards. So on your turn, you get to choose which strategic option to play. The cards are fun because you're actually able to play your opponent's players and not just your own, which is kind of fun.
And as you move around the board, you'll be going in and out. You've got surrounding streets here around the courthouse. You've got Goodwin, Whiskey Row, Gurley Street, Cortez Street. I have to ask you this because I know before you market a game, there are always, you know, legalities you have to deal with and stuff like this. Did you need any kind of approval from the town fathers before you came up with this?
No, actually, I talked to some people, and they actually laughed. They said, "This is Prescott. They're going to love this," right? So that's the reaction I got. I did get model releases. As you can see on the board, there's one gentleman from the reenactor group, the 4th Cavalry group, and there's 3 of them from the Renegades. So I did get model releases from them, yes.
And Brad, you are noted as a Whiskey Row and Prescott historian. I know you've had books published in the past. Tell us about your pursuits the last couple of years regarding Prescott, Whiskey Row, and your publishing.
Well, my book came out 2015. It's called Prescott's Original Whiskey Row, and it's done very, very well. And I've done lots of lectures, presentations, stuff like that. And I began doing Whiskey Row history tours, which have gone very, very well. But I'm currently under contract to write 2 books, and so I've kind of taken a step back so I can finish that. And the next book's going to be it's going to focus around the Great Fire of 1900.
Is that the one where they carried the bar out of the palace?
That's the one.
They carried it over to the courthouse, right?
Exactly. And when I was writing the first book, I thought that was going to prove untrue. I thought I was going to have to debunk that. But in the late stages of writing that book, and then I was in the editing phase, and I discovered that, it's true. There's a couple different ways it turned out as far as the way it's been told. So there was some changes in that, but that was one I didn't want to debunk. That's the great story.
That's almost too romantic.
I would have
had to glorify.
I would have had to leave town, and friends would have disowned me and stuff like that.
Brad, have you ever wondered why Hollywood hasn't taken more of an interest in this town? Because I think Westerns are ready for a comeback. I think we could use that. And boy, would this be a treasure trove of Western stories and film locations.
You're exactly right. This was a true frontier town. And some of the stories are just better than the OK Corral stories and some of the Deadwood stories that happened right on Whiskey Row. So I think a movie about Whiskey Row would be fantastic. But I understand it's hard to get Hollywood here. They make it hard for movie companies to come in here. So that's
well, the good news, I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the last year or two, I understand that we have, at least Phoenix has restored their film office to try and attract more filmmakers here, correct?
I heard that. Yeah, I heard that too. And we recently did the Wishman movie with, the story of Frank Shankwitz and Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that's supposedly the movie's finished, but they actually filmed that here, and I actually got to be in that movie.
Oh, how cool is that? Now, you've also got DVDs and videos out there, right? I
don't personally, but a friend of mine, Norm Fiss, made a DVD called Legends of Whiskey Row, which I was a script supervisor, so nice. I think it's still out there, but it's worth seeing it. It's amazing what one man did as far as it goes. It's a nice documentary.
Now, when it comes to your work, including your books and your other kinds of productions for Whiskey Row and Prescott History and Julie's Game, are these available yet at the Chamber of Commerce in Prescott?
Yes, the game is available at the Chamber Visitor Center. However, it's not available till January 5th. We have sold out for Christmas.
No. Well, that's a good problem to have.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
And you've also, I would imagine, for anybody who lives in this area and has adopted Prescott as everybody's hometown, this would be a great gift to send to friends and family all around the country to give them a taste of their hometown, right?
Yes, I've had requests from out of state. Currently, I plan to do some online sales starting in February. But the Chamber talked to me about their Shop Local campaign. So I'm in probably 6 different places around Prescott.
How cool
and
is that?
I love the Shop Local idea. Go to the brick and mortar stores. Keep the tax money here in Prescott. So I really wanted to support that for a while and then move into online sales because the out-of-state people can't get it.
Sure.
So.
I'm glad you mentioned that about getting to know the local hometown business people. Were you guys out and about on Akron Night?
Yes.
You know what I love most about Akron Night? Because you've got not only thousands of people descending on downtown, but they're getting out of their cars. They're walking around the downtown area, and because they have that mobility and, the camaraderie of other people, they find themselves walking into businesses they had just driven by for years and never really noticed. Exactly. And now they go, I had no idea this was here. They get to know the business owners. They get to look around, see what they have. It's great for business. It's great for the town. And, of course, the reason for Akron Night, it benefits the musical scholarships. Yeah. I just think that's fantastic.
Yeah. One of the things I came across in my research for the game was an article in Leisure and Travel and Leisure magazine. And it mentioned that Prescott was one of the top 10 community places in all of America. That link is on the site, as well as the history of Prescott, links to all the businesses on the board. And so I really grew to love Prescott even more through the process of the game. And of course, my friendship that, my husband and I have, now have with Brad has been amazing.
Yes, it has.
And just learning the history of Prescott. And the game, obviously I'm no historian, but it has enabled me to just learn so much more about this great place.
So officially, Brad Courtney would be your technical consultant, correct?
I'll give him that title, yes.
Technical consultant. Oh, boy.
We're just getting started with Brad Courtney and Julie Traynor and the board game Whiskey Row. We got lots more coming up in just a few minutes as we turn to news and weather with Link on today's Q&A on the Talk of the Quad Cities. 11:30 a.m., 99.9 FM, 95.5 FM in Prescott Valley and Cottonwood, and streaming live around the world, including the Whiskey Row at KQNA.com.
You're listening to Q&A on the Talk of the Quad Cities, KQNA. Once again, here's your host, DJ Phone.
Welcome back. It's 2:37. We are talking with Julie Traynor and Brad Courtney about a very cool game called Whiskey Row. And Julie, on the board, you ask, who rules the town? And you have the picture of the courthouse in the middle. You've got a large street. It looks like a street almost there. Jailhouse. You've also got the wanted, dead or alive cards. A whole lot of fun stuff. So take me back to your first drafts of this board game.
The first draft was very similar in design, but the mechanics were a little bit different. And my play testers really helped kind of work through that, Brad being one of them. Originally there was some gambling in it, which was kind of fun. I do hope at some point to put an advanced play on my website, that if you did want to do a little gambling or different things, and I think people might post some interesting things. So the play testers really were critical. Second Star Games, Alec there with a group of friends, a group of gamers was really important. And then, of course, blind testing, which is taking strangers and saying, okay, I'm in the room, but I'm not talking. Here's the instructions. And then I just watch and take notes. So that was a long time in the works, because they say a game is only as good as its instructions. So,
that's really interesting, because, you may market the heck out of something, but if people can't enjoy playing it and can't make it easy to access, it's gone out the window, hasn't it?
Right. And, they might get kind of mad that they spent the money on something. I do have to say this game is a little more strategy-oriented than chance. So it will take you just a bit to read the instructions. It's not, you can't just pick it up and play it like some games these days. But it makes it more exciting once you learn. 2 rounds in, it's intuitive, and you got it. And it's fun. And
Brad, speak from a historian's point of view. Once you read those instructions of the game, do you have to be well versed on Whiskey Row to play it, to enjoy it?
No, as a matter of fact, I haven't even read the instructions, because I've always had the inventor of the game right beside me, and I just ask questions, and so I haven't even peeked at them. But I noticed, I've played it 5 times now, and what's interesting about it is that people talk to each other. They actually kind of help each other. Can I do this? Can I, is this, how do you tunnel? That kind of stuff. So that's kind of interesting.
So when you were a kid or a teenager, which board games did you most enjoy playing?
All of them.
There were thousands of it seems.
I liked all of them. I think the thing I liked just the best is getting a group of friends or family together, and no matter what the game was, it was a really good way to come together. When
you talk to people for the first time to introduce your game, how often does somebody say, "Is it like Monopoly?"
Oh, I get that. I even get that.
Yeah. All the time, and you can't blame them, because the courthouse square is set up as a square, and the things around it are square.
And so, Monopoly, you have the
exactly.
And everything. Oh yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
So that's a valid question, but there's nothing about the mechanics of the game that's in any way resembles Monopoly. It takes about hour and a half to play. Depends on how competitive you want to get, I suppose.
Sure.
And of course, unlike Monopoly, which we all like to break out now and again, but if you fall out of that at the beginning of the game, I mean, you're banished to the next room for an hour while all your friends are still playing, right?
I found another way to get banished from the game. I had some friends over years ago to play Monopoly with real money. And those 3 friends are now 3 ex-friends.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that can backfire real quick. It really can.
Oops.
Yeah, especially if you land on Park Place and Broadway, and they have hotels. Anyway, obviously this game has to be manufactured, and you can't make it, in your living room. So how do you go from design to manufacture?
A lot of research to get the right people. I do have all made in the USA people.
Nice.
To be honest with you, who they use, I'm not always sure, but I researched it. I do some of the assembly myself, and a big shout out to my husband for doing it with me.
Larry.
Yeah, and of course, I'm new to the game, so I got to keep costs low, but it's a business too, but we'll see how it goes.
And most of the board games that I play at home, the box has instructions for ages 3 and up. What would be your ideal age range for the Whiskey Row game?
12 and up.
12 and up.
Yeah, during play tests, I had a really smart 10-year-old that was trying to remind her parents how to play.
It's kind of like my computer experience.
Yeah. So
I noticed at the Palace when you had your launch event that Constable Ron Williams was there with his family, and his kids were playing, and they were getting it.
How cool.
Yeah,
My constable said he won. He didn't.
So how many players at one time can play the game?
It's 2 to 4. I really set out to do the 2 because playing as couples, I think, is a really fun thing. And a lot of couples come to visit Prescott, and there's a lot of retired couples, things like that. So you don't always have a big group. So 2 to 4, but teams is really fun. So you can play 5, 6, 7, or 8.
Oh, neat. So is this the first game you've tried to design?
No, I've had a lot in my mind over the years. There was one that almost took to fruition. It was a question-based game, but at that time there were so many out that I let that go before I went to production.
Before you got serious about designing this, give me an idea of what you had to think about in terms of production costs, distribution, marketing, things like this, because it's a lot more than just designing a game, isn't it?
Right. So I'm all right brain creative. So to challenge my left brain side is challenging, to say the least. But it's actually been a very fun process. And I've enjoyed meeting people, from the manufacturers to the retailers to the Brads of the world, to the people at the Palace that hosted my launch event, all the playtesters, friends along the way. I feel plugged into this community that I know would have taken me years to do if I hadn't done this game, and it's just a joy.
Now, I have to ask you and Brad this. When you open up the newspaper and saw on the very front page, above the fold, you and Brad and the new game, were you prepared for the sudden attention?
Not exactly. I was hoping for the novelty of it. My hope is that the people that buy it as a novelty item are going to like it as a game.
Yeah, and
and I think one of the best compliments I got, Brad, was from you, where you said, obviously you love Whiskey Row, but once you were into the game
is fun.
Yeah,
it is really fun. I've heard people say it's addicting.
Awesome.
That's even better. That's even better. Now, you said the game sold out quickly. It's coming back in stores January 5th, right?
Yes.
And
there's a few people, if they're listening, on the list a little earlier. So, yes, to you, they will get there.
Now, do you have gift cards where people can maybe reserve a copy of the game?
I do. There's been a couple people that have liked that option. They wanted to give it as a Christmas gift, so instead they bought a gift card, which comes with an envelope and everything. And so you could say, here's your gift. Okay, don't have it yet, but here you go.
I've been in those shoes many a time. So any other future games coming up in your mind right now?
I actually do have one. I'm sort of set on this Wild West theme, and Tombstone is really drawing my attention. And I have some ideas for that, to change up the mechanics a little bit, but Yeah.
We'll have to make a field trip for that.
Awesome.
You know, Brad, I'm seeing a common thread here, because you as an author and Julie as a game designer, you guys go through pretty much the same development phase, I would think, because you gotta come up with an idea that's going to grab people and stick with them. And also with this, you can be historically accurate and still really entertaining, right?
Exactly. And the good thing about Whiskey Row history is there are some stories that I thank God for, but then I feel guilty because they involve murder and suicides and stuff like that. But, with Whiskey Row history, the stories are fun in themselves, so that's kind of a built-in thing. It's nice.
Have you ever wondered, as a historian, maybe I wished I'd been born during that glory era of the Wild West here?
I know exactly what era I would be in. I would be a scout, during the Apache Wars. I already know. I know.
Isn't that cool? Now, Julie, with all of the different distractions people have online, isn't it refreshing to open up a box, see a board game and the game pieces, put it on the table, and talk to each other during the game with your phones off?
Yes, face-to-face. It was 2015 when the resurgence of board games started coming back. Because the Internet's, it's an awesome thing.
Sure.
But it hasn't ran its course. But it ran it enough that people are saying, hey, let's get back to the table and face-to-face. So, yeah.
And when you're playing the game, obviously, like any really, really good board game, you can have a lot of fun, not just with the game, but also with the social aspect, can't you?
Yeah, and one part of the game is, especially toward the end of the game, you need to start working together to get one person to not win. So it's fun that way, too.
What was the most challenging part in designing this?
Oh, the directions.
Really?
Yeah.
So did you write the directions or bring somebody in to do it?
I did write the directions. I write creatively. I've written children's books in the past, and I really do enjoy writing. But technical writing is sort of a different animal.
Sure.
So the hardest part was I knew the game so well, and I had to keep working at taking a step back, and I'd have to convince myself that I had never seen the game before. And that was really hard to do.
Yeah, I imagine.
You know what's interesting about that? I've played the game 4 times with you, and you've yet to win.
Isn't that fascinating?
But she's helping everybody else.
That's true.
You know what?
I've never seen her win the game.
When it comes to designing, and this can apply to a game or to a book or a video, when I lived in San Diego, I found out about the history of WD-40. You know why they call it WD-40?
No idea.
Because it was the company's water displacement, WD. It was their 40th formula that got it right. The first 39 were all failures. And Thomas Edison famously said, yeah, I invented a light bulb, but before I got the thing right, I found 900 ways it didn't work. So how many different prototypes of this game did you go through before going, now we got it?
I would say 4 or 5.
What kinds of things did you kick out to make the final version?
The gambling money. There's this thing where you're all in hideouts, and it was kind of paying to go in and out of people's hideouts. But what I did is when I researched the market, I found that there was a certain type of person that likes strategy, but would maybe like to have a few drinks while they're playing, and still be able to play.
Sure.
I mean, I can say that's because it's called Whiskey Row, I guess. But, I wanted it strategy enough to be fun and engaging and challenging, but not strategy enough that it puts someone over the edge. Like, I don't want to learn this. It's too difficult. So I did pare down a little bit. My son actually helped me a little bit with that.
You found a good balance.
Yeah.
So with all the Whiskey Row history we have here, any chance that the Whiskey Row bars might set aside a little corner table and have the game for their customers to play?
Well, the Palace, Dennis and Derry McCormick and Scott and Martha Stanford have been so supportive, and the Palace launch event that we had, they had the Whiskey Row Renegades there, they had Buscaderos,
4th Cavalry,
regularly Company the Heartbreakers were there,
James of Chance.
But the Palace has been especially supportive, I think.
Yeah, we played there a few times.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the Chamber of Commerce Information Center is going to have the game eventually, right?
They had it before it was sold out. Yes. Mm-hmm. And they're really on board, and certainly when that comes back out, they'll restock as well. One of the exciting things is the Elks has picked it up.
Oh, how cool!
And they're going to make it available in their lobby during every performance, so it can be found.
That is a wonderful marketing arm too, and a great part of Prescott's history too, because that theater is 90 years old or something.
Yeah.
And I tell people who have never been to the Elks, you'll walk in there and you'll think you just walked into the grand opening of a great small town theater around 1920 or something, complete with the ushers' outfits and things like this. What a great idea! How can our listeners get a copy of the Whiskey Row board game?
Well, starting January 5th, they can get it at the Palace Restaurant and Saloon, Prescott Trading Company. Of course, they're on Whiskey Row. So, also at the Peregrine Book Company, Lefevre's Boutique, and as we mentioned, the Chamber of Commerce and the Elks.
And Brad Courtney, how can our listeners get a copy of your books?
They're kind of the same places. They're at the Palace, Old Sage, Peregrine, heard you can get them at Costco, or you want a signed copy to whiskeyrowbooks@gmail.com.
Very good. That is Brad Courtney and Julie Trainer. The name of the board game is Whiskey Row, correct?
Yep.
We look forward to more exciting stories about your next game as well as this one. Thanks for joining us today on Q&A. Stay tuned. Got some final...